Hey there, Sula here from MistyHilltops.com. Thanks for stopping by. In this video, I will show you how I create a traveler's notebook layout titled Bell Pepper. I'll be using this paper pack Sweet Delight from Rosie Studio, and I'll be scrapping these photos. This will be a mixed media page, so I begin by covering up my workspace so I won't have paint splatters all over the place. I have a stencil here that I'll be using, and it has some kind of a leafy pattern that I want to put onto my page. And so I begin with some green watercolor. I just use watercolor. I don't put gesso on the background. I find that gesso just warps my pages too much. And so I just paint it directly on my cardstock there. And so this is going to take quite a while, and so I will be speeding this up even more. And I'm going to apply that stencil on both sides of this traveler's notebook spread. So I'll be skipping ahead. All right, you see I skipped ahead a little. I finished one side. I am about to finish the other side. Just a few more of those leafy design is going at the very bottom there on the left page, and I like how it turned out. Then I'll let it dry, and once it's dried, I'm ready to work with this. So I'm still bending. There's a slight warping, but it's not too bad. As I said, I don't like to work with gesso, even though I do have gesso at home, but I've learned that it just, with this cardstock, it kind of works nice if I just apply the watercolor on the background directly. So here I have some paper strips that I cut from this paper pack, but I'm also using washi tape. I have this green washi tape that kind of fits the colors very nicely of the paper and the photos actually even more. And so I apply that and then have these paper strips. And I'm going to mirror that cluster on the other page. So here I'm just adding the strips and the photo. I have a mat for the photo, but I don't plan on gluing the photo straight onto the mat. I just want it offset a little bit to give it a little more interest, so that it looks a little nicer. Here I'm distressing the edges of my paper strips. And I use a card for that. I know there's distressing tools and all that, but I just use a card that helps me do that, and it works, I think, just as fine. So I'm going around most of the edges. I don't always do it underneath the photo. It helps with gluing the photo down and gluing everything down if not the edges on behind photos and that are covered up are not actually distressed. But sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Either way, it works. I think it does work slightly better when the edges are not distressed underneath those whatever other layers you put on there. So one by one I have these different strips that I'm working on. And then comes the gluing part where I glue it down. I'm not looking for a completely mirrored look, though I do want the repetition. So it's just for design purposes, I decide that I want some repetition, but the embellishments will be different. It's the same kind of embellishments, but the arrangement of the embellishments will be slightly different. And again, like you see, I'm not planning on putting the photo down straight. But before I put the photo down, now comes the foliage. This is from a die cut that I have in my stash. Don't know its name, as I can buy things here online, but they're not labeled in any way. And this is a stamp that is a layered stamp with 2 or 3 different stamp layers. So I just do that with my stamping tool. I do that beforehand because it takes a little while to dry, and I tend to be messy and I smudge things up, and so that I can work in one go, I usually stamp my things before I work on the page on putting everything together. So here is the second part, so that you see the first cluster is pretty much done, and then here comes the second page. I put it down. I use liquid glue. I like this liquid glue. It just takes a few seconds to dry, so it gives me just enough time so I can move things around if I need them moving a little more, and then it starts sticking very quickly, and that just works really well for me. Also, when I get the glue on my fingers, I can just rub it off and it's all good. So here you see that I cut those leafy parts apart. Actually, I cut them, when I die cut them, I cut them from a piece of cardstock that I knew wasn't going to fit perfectly anymore because I'd cut other things from it, but it works fine. I just, that way it's actually not exactly the same cluster. It's a slightly different cluster. The repetition is there so that both pages work together, go together, see that they belong together. The photos are of the same topic, so there's that. The repetition helps with bringing those two sides of the layout together. Obviously, this is a traveler's notebook layout, so it's 2 pages, but I do like to treat my traveler's notebook layouts like a normal scrapbook layout that is just 1 piece of paper. But anyway, here comes the title. I also added some word strips. I create those word strips myself on my computer. I just type up the words and print them out. I'll be putting up a video soon of how I create those word strips, and there will be a PDF that you can download as a freebie to go along with that on my blog. So I'll be letting you know when that happens. So here I have die cut from a piece of cardstock that I watercolored. The watercolor has a similar color that goes with my papers, and so I used one of my alpha dies to cut out this title, and now it goes down there on the page. And I think that's that. I'll be leaving you with a few more close-ups, and I hope you liked this video. Hit the thumbs up if you do. Consider subscribing, and thanks for stopping by. Have a great day. Bye.